I have an old PC case and a broken PC. Converting this into a test bench should be pretty easy, but I learned a very hard lesson along the way. Let's see how to turn this old PC case into my new test bench. The first step is to drill out all of the rivets from the case. So this is a pretty weak case, and as you can see here, the aluminium that's on this case is really fragile. As for drilling out the rivets, they came out really easily and this case started to fall apart quite quickly, which is exactly what I wanted. Just a small tip as well, for these rivets in particular, I was using a drill bit just a little bit bigger than the hole of the rivet, but not bigger than the rivet itself. So luckily, these rivets were coming out pretty easily when I was pressing down on them with the drill. Now I would highly recommend not holding the case like this with your bare hands and actually clamping it to a bench, as I will show you guys later something really unfortunate happened to my hand. So for this case, I drilled out the rivets for the front part of the case, so the front panel, the top panel, and the bottom panel. I left the back panel on where the IO shield would go, as well as the power supply. Now I'm actually going to leave the power supply on top of the case as it makes it a little bit easier. Once you have everything drilled out, I would highly recommend getting a vacuum cleaner and vacuuming up all of the extra aluminium filing or steel filing that's falling everywhere. This stuff is not good for your skin, and make sure that you do not get it in your eyes. So as you can see on my drill bit, I was being a little bit reckless when I was drilling out the rivets, and as you can see, they're actually stuck on the drill bit itself. So to get them off, if this happens to you, I placed them through a hole that I had drilled with one of the rivets. So larger than the drill bit, but not large enough for the actual rivets themselves stuck on the drill bit. I placed the reverse side into the drill, so not the smooth side, but the jagged side with the actual drill bit into the drill, screwed it into the chuck of the drill, then pressed the reverse button on the drill, and all of the rivets came flying out when I pulled towards me. Now just be careful if you do this, as it's a little bit unsafe. For the next part, I needed to secure two bottom plates to make the actual test bench stand up so I have some space for my hard drives. I'm just going to be using the top and bottom parts of the case to secure them down. All I need to do this is to actually get a bolt and just bolt it on. So as you can see, for the first one, I managed to bolt it on pretty well. Since this bottom leg is shorter than the actual test bench, I needed to drill another hole so I can put another bolt on. You can see up to this point, I was being kind of reckless with the drill, and I'm about to pay for it. So this is my caution and safety. Yeah. I accidentally drilled a hole in my finger. Yeah, in my middle finger. There's a literal hole I drilled into it. I'm probably gonna blur it out, but there is an entry and an exit on my middle finger, my left middle finger. So the drill bit fully went through the pad of my finger. I had unconsciously moved my hand at the last second. So make sure to clamp down your stuff onto a workbench and actually do this properly. Don't do what I did, as I literally had to go to hospital for it. In any case, let's go forward with the video. I'm gonna bolt on the bottom panel to this one just with a small bolt, and since the rivets are gone from the actual case, I will also need to put another bolt towards the end of the case to make sure it's all stuck together. After all of that, I was a little bit apprehensive of using the drill again, so I decided for the other side, for the other leg on the right hand side, that I'm going to use a hot glue gun instead. So I just got the hot glue gun nice and hot, so I left it around about 15 minutes to heat up, and then we added some glue onto the side, and it actually worked out really well. It's quite stable and didn't have any problems. I've also glued the other side as well, where the bolts are, just for some extra stability, just like on the side, almost like a glue weld, so everything everything goes together well. So I used quite a bit of hot glue here instead of bolting it together, and hopefully should be good in the long run. The next step is addressing the wobbling from the test bench. Well, it could be either the aluminium itself or that I didn't glue it on exactly straight for the legs. This is a pretty easy remedy, so what I did is I grabbed some bamboo, or you can use any piece of wood or any piece of metal that's easy to cut. I cut it to the size of the gap between the left and right legs, and then all I did was glue it onto each other, the left and right legs, so the stability is a little bit better. This helped the wobble a bit and made sure it was a little bit more taut. You could say it's pretty much done, but I did want to have a place to put my hard drives and SSDs, so I had this old piece of corkboard that I wasn't using, and I just screwed the whole test bench onto it just to make sure it's a little bit more stable, as well as having a place for the hard drives and SSDs as well as anything else I want. This is pretty easy. All I did is screw it down into the piece of wood and as well hot gluing it just to make sure that it's a little bit more stable. On to the last step now. And all I had to do is just paint it with some Plasti Dip just to prevent any sort of shorting that could happen just in case, as I only have 4 standoffs installed in this case for the motherboard. For painting with Plasti Dip, I would also highly recommend putting it in some warm water just for a little while just to loosen the paint up as well as the ball inside, then give it a couple of shakes. And then when you hit it with the Plasti Dip, the first coat should just be a light coat in my opinion. The second coat should be a little bit heavier, and the third coat should be quite heavy. Now, a lot of people like to do 5 coats with Plasti Dip, but I only did 3 just because I wanted to save on paint. Between the coats, I waited around about 20 to 25 minutes to do the next coat of paint, and for it to fully cure, I waited around about 8 to 10 hours. I used about 1/4 of the can, I'd say, for the whole test bench, including the corkboard at the bottom. Now, I could have just used normal paint at the bottom as it didn't need to be rubberized paint to prevent any sort of shorting, but it's just the paint that I had on me. Now, of course, you could use any sort of other paint for the bottom, but for the actual top test bench where the motherboard goes, I would recommend using some sort of rubberized paint like Plasti Dip to help prevent any sort of shorting that could occur. We're almost pretty much done. The last step is just to put some felt pads at the bottom to prevent scratching, as well as some of the places where it's missing standoffs to prevent motherboard sagging. There we go, it's all done. We have successfully converted our case into a test bench with a couple of steps along the way, as well as a safety lesson. The cost wasn't too bad as well for this entire build, around about $30 for the Plasti Dip, and I didn't use the full can. The felt pads that I put at the top and bottom of the case was around about $3.50 for the whole pack, and accounting for the screws, the nuts and bolts, as well as the hot glue sticks that I use, probably around about $10 or so. So we can say this whole project costs under 45 New Zealand dollars, including the paint. So it wasn't too bad overall, and considering that we were able to upcycle some old materials such as the old PC case and the bamboo that we had lying around, I think it looks pretty good with the black Plasti Dip paint, although not too much of a difference, and it's nice to feel the coat of paint on the actual metal, knowing that nothing will short out. Quite an easy conversion and will prove extremely useful going forward for myself. I hope you guys enjoyed the build today. Make sure you go and check out wisetech.org for some more awesome content. But other than that, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!